Welcome back to another show, folks, and we have a ton of updates for seniors, people on Social Security, those who are in retirement focused on their 401ks, other programs like SSI and SSDI as well. So let's jump right into it, folks. Apparently, as most of you probably know at this point, Kevin McCarthy finally won House Speaker for Republicans, right? This was a massive issue here. Took a long time. But what ended up happening is he cut a massive, massive deal with conservative Republicans, right? The Freedom Caucus. And this plan that he came up with to say, you know what, I'm going to work with conservative Republicans could have massive, massive implications for your retirement, for Social Security reform, SSDI, potential 401k changes as well. And especially, these plans that Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden have for Social Security benefits, right? So let's jump right into it. Let's see exactly what Kevin McCarthy's plan was and is when it comes to working with conservative Republicans, how that could affect legislation going forward, and specifically how that could affect you in your retirement as well. So let's jump right into it, folks. But as always, like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, quick reminder to get your free stocks from our partner Webull. You can get up to 12 free stocks valued up to $3,000 each if you get lucky. You could sell the stocks immediately and take the money if you'd like. All you have to do is click on the link in the description of this video. You have to fully open your account, and that's really important. I have a lot of people signing up, but not fully opening their account. You have to go through the entire process and deposit even just $1. So you have to deposit $1 to get a bunch of free stocks. Again, I'll get a free stock as well, so it supports my work. With that said, folks, let's jump right into it. So essentially what's going on here is, at this point, most of you heard Kevin McCarthy won Speaker of the House. And the way he won, the plan, his new plan to work with conservative Democrats, specifically the Freedom Caucus, could have massive implications on your retirement, right? So let's quickly talk about what happened here. You already know that there was about 20 conservative Republicans who didn't want to give him the vote, right? They voted 15 times. They even had Trump calling people in the House, right? You see, Marjorie Taylor Greene here was trying to hand her phone to Representative Matt Rosendale, and he wouldn't even take the call. He's like, nope, we're not voting for McCarthy. I won't even take former President Trump's call. Well, eventually, they came to a deal, right? So Kevin McCarthy came to the realization that, you know what? One of two things are going to happen here. I'm either going to become Speaker of the House or I'm not. And basically, the only way that was going to work, in his eyes, was if he cut a deal with Republicans. Now, he could have also cut a deal and made a plan with Democrats, which would have been a lot more kind of surprising, but it actually would have boded better for retirement benefits, for 401k, Social Security, and things like that. That was more unlikely, but it would have been better for your retirement, right? And we talked about that in my previous show, that he could have cut a deal with like 4 or 5 Democrats, some moderate Democrats, and said, you know what, if you vote for Kevin McCarthy, we'll put some Democrats on some committees, we'll give Democrats a little more influence in the House, and that would have opened the door to potentially getting some of Joe Biden's plans done, right? Like increasing benefits across the board, the Social Security Expansion Act that Bernie Sanders wants to do as well. That didn't happen. So his new plan was essentially to cave to the Freedom Caucus, right? He basically gave them everything they wanted, and that plan of his to work with far conservatives does not bode well for Social Security, folks. And the reason is, now what's going to happen is they're going to have even more of the Freedom Caucus representatives, more conservative Republicans on committees. And they're going to have even more power, not just because they're on committees, but also because he basically told them, you know what, this rule you probably heard about, where even a single representative, just one, can force a vote to replace the Speaker of the House, right? And, obviously that has all types of ramifications, but one of the biggest ramifications it has is it gives every conservative member, every Freedom Caucus member, the power to say, you know what, we're not going to vote on anything. We're not going to try and reform Social Security benefits. We're not going to try and pass any legislation, things like the debt ceiling, right, that have to get done every year. Otherwise, the U.S. government could default. Things like the annual spending bill, which could cause the government to shut down if it's not done, right? All these things that are difficult to get done every year. Basically, like Boebert, right? Lauren Boebert could say, you know what? We're not even going to vote on that. We're going to force a vote on replacing the Speaker of the House. And what that does is, one, it literally gives Lauren Boebert and the other conservatives more power to keep controlling the narrative and basically, freeze everything in the House and say, nope, we're just going to keep voting over and over to try and get rid of Kevin McCarthy, basically holding McCarthy's feet to the fire, which is fine to hold people to the fire, right? Keep them accountable, but it can basically slow things down. And the reason this isn't good for Social Security, for SSI, for SSDI, and probably even for 401ks as well, is the further conservative Republicans, they don't want these programs to expand, right? And I think you guys all know that. They usually want these programs to get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? They want small government, they want less taxes, they want less social programs like Social Security. And that doesn't bode well for the things that Joe Biden wants to do. So this plan, Kevin McCarthy's plan to essentially cave to the far right, the more extreme Republicans, that new plan of his to basically do whatever it takes to gain more power, to become Speaker of the House. He's so hungry, right? He's so hungry. It's basically like Joe Biden caving to Joe Manchin, over the last couple of years with the stimulus packages and Social Security expansions and things like that, right? Basically the exact same thing's happening, but to Kevin McCarthy with the Freedom Caucus. And this plan of his, although it helps him, right? Kevin McCarthy, he got the speakership. Look how happy he was, right? You saw these pictures. He's smiling like a 5-year-old on Christmas morning. That plan works well for him, but that plan does not work well for folks on Social Security benefits, because now you're going to have the Freedom Caucus. They're going to chair more committees, which when you chair those committees, you have more influence. A lot of these committee chairs, they won't even put packages together or bills together, to expand Social Security benefits and things like that, right? And then on top of that, they can now vote or force a vote to try and replace the Speaker of the House, which overall is fine. But then they're just going to use it as another game to kind of control the narrative, slow down legislation, not let anything get done, right? It's just like another tool up their sleeve now to logjam the House even more, right? So all of that does not bode well for Social Security benefits, right? And it makes sense. Even if you agree, right? If you agree with conservative Republicans and the Freedom Caucus in general, when it comes to Social Security benefits, programs like SSI, SSDI, that doesn't bode well for those programs because they don't want to expand those programs. They want to cut those programs. So essentially, Kevin McCarthy's new plan to empower conservatives, right? Empower the Freedom Caucus group. That new plan does not bode well for Social Security benefits. Now, with that said, we still have Joe Biden who made these promises, right? Joe Biden said he wants to increase benefits across the board. He wants to create basically a minimum benefit that is at least 125% of the federal poverty level. He also wants to increase benefits for widows. Widows typically, before they become widows, they have 2 checks coming in, right? Their check and their spouse's. One person passes away, then their benefit, it gets increased a little bit, but not enough to account for the 2 checks they used to get, right? So he wants to fix that for the most part and give widows bigger checks. He also wants to increase checks for people on SSDI and SSI, SSI being the worst, obviously, right? And also increase benefits for people who have been on benefits for 20 years or more because they have so many health issues to deal with, right? So all of these things that President Biden wants to do, it becomes harder to get done with Kevin McCarthy's new plan, right? When you're empowering, people like Lauren Boebert and more conservative folks, that doesn't bode well for Joe Biden's plan. Obviously, right? I hope that makes sense. Now, obviously, Social Security isn't the other issue. You might agree with conservatives when it comes to other policies, right, that you always hear about in the news, and that's fine. But when it comes to this channel, we're talking about retirement benefits. We're talking about financial security while you're retired, whether that includes your 401k, Social Security benefits, SSDI, things of that nature. But whatever the case may be, I always tell my subscribers, you have to have multiple streams of income. And quick reminder, folks, if you guys want to learn how to create multiple streams of income while being your own boss, working just a handful of hours per week, only working when you feel like it, you can literally work with Amazon at the push of a button when you feel like it and easily create $500 to over $1,000 per month by working a handful of hours per week and only working when you want. You could even do things by create additional forms of passive income by renting out your garage, renting out your car, renting out things you already own on trusted websites and applications. And if you guys are interested in learning how, we have a new program launching called Gig Economy Pro. And if you want to join our group, we'll show you exactly how to do these things and how to get started. And right now we have an early bird sale. So if you guys would like to join, it's never going to be this cheap, but I'm creating a massive discount for those of you who purchase now before the group fully launches by February 28th. So if you guys are interested in that, in creating multiple streams of income and only working when you feel like it, click the link in the description of this video. So with that said, folks, let's take a quick look at what Kevin McCarthy said. As soon as he won House Speaker, he came out and gave a massive speech. Let's take a quick look and kind of discuss, what is he going to focus on? What's the legislation? What's his plan here? And what are they going to lay out, right? Are they going to talk about Social Security benefits? Are they going to ignore Social Security benefits? Are they going to try and cut benefits, increase benefits? What's going to happen here? And how is his agenda going to align with President Biden's, again, who wants to increase benefits across the board, or Bernie Sanders, who wants to do the Social Security Expansion Act, which includes the $200 per month boost for the entire year of 2023, right? But let's quickly take a look and see what Kevin McCarthy had to say as soon as he won Speaker of the House.
Love for this country and charity for each other. Let us now take our oath and be worthy of the office on which we are about to enter. God bless everybody in this chamber, and God bless America. Not so fast. I have to get sworn in first. Sit down. I am now ready to take the oath of office. I want to ask the Dean of the House, the Honorable Hal Rogers of Kentucky, one of my first mentors, to administer the oath of the office.
First, we want to offer a bipartisan congratulations to the gentleman from California. Now, will the Speaker designate raise his right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you're about to enter? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Congratulations and Godspeed.
Thank you. According to the President, the Chair will swear in the members-elect en masse. The members-elect will rise. The Chair will now administer the oath of the office. All members-elect will raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic? That you...
Okay, guys, so if you're just joining today's show, we're discussing the fact that Kevin McCarthy's new plan in the House is going to have massive impacts on what could happen going forward with your retirement program benefits, whether that's Social Security, SSI, SSDI, your 401k benefits, how that plan is structured. Now, his new plan essentially is to work with the Freedom Caucus, right? To work with the most conservative Republicans in the House to try and get things done. And that was evident in the fact that he told them, you know what? We're going to basically do everything you want, just to get elected, right? And I'm simplifying this and I'm not going too deep into those details, but essentially Kevin McCarthy caved into the Freedom Caucus's demands, right? And one of the biggest demands, which we'll talk about in a second, is they can force a vote to replace the House Speaker just with a single representative, right? So when you think about Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, if they want to cause a ruckus, right? Or if they want to like freeze everything getting done in the House, all they have to do is say, you know what? Nope, we're forcing a vote to replace Kevin McCarthy. And the same way they just voted 15 times over the course of like 4 days, they could keep doing that again, right? So when you think about, let's say, President Biden somehow, by a miracle, he starts to get his agenda for Social Security done, right? All of these benefits he promised to do. Joe Biden promised to increase benefits for basically everybody. Let's say we finally have some momentum on that. Well, now that the Freedom Caucus can just force a vote to replace the House Speaker just with one representative, they can basically freeze anything they want, right? They can say, nope, we're just going to keep voting to replace Kevin McCarthy. On top of that, Kevin McCarthy, it's being reported, also agreed to put more conservative, very conservative Republicans, right, the Freedom Caucus, more of them on committee chairs, which means when you're the chair of the committee, you have a lot of control over what bills get put together, right? Because the committees, they put together these portions of the bills. All the committees put their little portions together, and then the bill comes to the floor, right? Well, if you have someone like Lauren Boebert, who doesn't want to increase Social Security benefits, chairing a committee, those bills won't even get written, right? Those portions of the bills won't even make it to the floor. So this plan of Kevin McCarthy to work and basically concede to the Freedom Caucus, that ain't good for Social Security benefits, right? And this is why it might have just gotten a little more difficult for Joe Biden's agenda on Social Security benefits to get done. Now, with that said, Joe Biden had control of the House for the last 2 years, and that didn't get done anyway. But there was a lot of speculation that, now that the stimulus packages are done, now that all that kind of craziness from, Corona is kind of over for the most part, now they can move on to Social Security benefits, right? To SSI, to SSDI, to improving 401k programs. These are all things that he promised on the campaign trail. And if you follow my channel and if you're watching this video, I know you remember all of the promises that Joe Biden made, right? Well, this plan of Kevin McCarthy to work with the Freedom Caucus, that is not good for Social Security benefits, right? And we need these increases across the board. Now, really quick, folks, I want to play this video. See, a lot of people are also looking at the leader of the Freedom Caucus, Scott Perry, and they're surprised he decided to go ahead and vote for Kevin McCarthy. And that was a massive signal as the chair, the leader of the Freedom Caucus, Scott Perry, voted for McCarthy, and that signals Kevin McCarthy really gave in, right? So let's take a look. Kevin McCarthy basically saying why he finally voted for Kevin McCarthy. Let's take a quick look and see what he had to say.
Really dramatic moments on the House floor today. And one of those was when the head of the Freedom Caucus, who had been leading the coalition against McCarthy, changed his vote to support him. Watch this.
Perry. McCarthy.
You can see the enthusiasm from McCarthy's allies there on the floor. House Freedom Caucus Chair, Pennsylvania Republican Congressman-elect Scott Perry joins me now. Sir, thank you very much for being with us. Why did you change your vote today?
Well, look, I wouldn't say that we've been against McCarthy. I've known Kevin McCarthy since we were in Young Republicans together. But, Martha, it's been a long road for me. I started this conversation last summer. It's about changing the way things are done in Congress. And the status quo just doesn't work for the American citizens. And I kind of saw potentially that this moment was going to come where the margins were going to be tight. Now, I will tell you that the status quo is reluctant to change anything here. Everything's working great for Washington, D.C., but Washington's not working very well for the American people. And so in the summertime, I started and I said to the leader, we got to change things around here. Now, with all fairness and all honesty, there wasn't a lot of interest in that conversation, and there wasn't interest in the fall when I continued to go back. But where the interest started to become evident was the day after the November election, But even so, it was very slow going, and it takes pressure sometimes to make the difficult changes that need to be made.
So if I may, sir, tell me exactly what the concessions are as you understand them. Are you now at a one-vote threshold to force a vote to keep or lose the speaker if indeed Kevin McCarthy is that person?
Yeah, we are now at the one vote threshold that Thomas Jefferson envisioned that lasted for 200 years, that didn't change until Nancy Pelosi changed it. It allows any single member of the entire chamber, for the purposes of accountability, to make a motion to vacate the chair, to take the speaker off the chair. But it still requires a majority to vote that way. But every single member should have that right. The speaker is the most important and the most powerful person in the building, and there needs to be an accountability unlike any other, not only to the American people, but to the members of this body.
All right. So you obviously, as the chair of the House Freedom Caucus, had sway, some persuasive power over some of these other members. But we just heard the names of those. This is not going to go Kevin McCarthy's way yet. And we're going to wait for this next round of voting to get underway. But he's at 214 right now, and he needs to be 216, 217, 218, somewhere in there. And you still have Eli Crane, Rosendale, Boebert, and Gates voting against. Which of those individuals do you think might peel off and change their mind today or tomorrow or the next day?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak for them other than to say they are my friends, they are patriots, and their cause is just. But I will say this, we have a framework of an agreement that we have gotten to in good faith, myself included. When you get what you ask for, then you should say yes. If there's something that's missing that can get them to the point of agreement, if there's something that concerns them, we want to hear about it.
What do you think that could be? I mean, what do you think the sticking points are with these individuals at this point? Because they seem very dug in.
Yeah, well, I think one of the problems is that, unfortunately, there's a trust issue here. And the arrangement that we've kind of come to, the framework, is one that kind of doesn't rely on trust as much as in the past. We shouldn't be reliant on the trust in one person here to get things done for the American people. And so that's the framework that's set up. If it's not enough for them, I get it.
All right, guys. So the point here, obviously, is Kevin McCarthy, he basically caved to the Freedom Caucus, right? He basically caved, and he's given them whatever they want. And this plan of his to kind of work more in tandem with the Freedom Caucus, that's fine, right? We're for whatever you believe in politically. But when it comes to retirement benefits, that ain't fine. That doesn't bode well when you have ultra conservatives having even more influence in the House, right? Look at the massive influence the Freedom Caucus just had on the election, just to get Kevin McCarthy elected. Think about the influence they're going to have now that they're going to be chairing more committees, now that they're going to have the influence to try and get rid of Kevin McCarthy with one single, person saying they have to bring this to a vote. This is massive, right? So this plan, in my opinion, is scary for people who are on retirement benefits, especially at a time when we're finally hoping Joe Biden starts pushing his agenda to increase all of these programs, increase Social Security, SSI, SSDI. We also have Bernie Sanders trying to do the Social Security Expansion Act, which would add that $200 per month bonus, right? Now, if you're just joining today's show, I'm going to quickly recap what's going on, what happened in the House, and how we think that's going to affect your benefits going forward, what happens in Congress going forward. But really quickly, let's talk about what Kevin McCarthy said he's going to be working on, right? Because this matters. Are they going to try and reform retirement programs? Are they going to ignore it, right? Like, typically, they kick the can down the road. That's probably what's going to happen. But we have to see their agenda, and he hasn't fully laid out his agenda yet, but he gave a quick speech kind of talking about some main points about what they're going to focus on. So let's take a quick look. So U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy pledges to tackle immigration, woke education policies, and IRS funding. So apparently he came out and said that they're going to try and go hard on the border control and things like that, which President Biden recently came out and said he's going to start kind of getting tougher on as well. Education, obviously, with like controversial things being talked about in school, and IRS funding. Basically, the government approved a package where the IRS is going to be basically they're going to have more funding to hire more people to audit the middle class, which, on the one hand is fine. On the other hand, we don't want people getting audited too much. We don't mind if the millionaires get audited, though. But basically, if you go through his speech and whatnot, God, look how happy he is. I don't know if you can see that. He really didn't talk too much or at all, basically, about retirement programs. He didn't mention Social Security yet. He didn't mention SSI or SSDI, right? Anything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks and over the next, I think it's 10 days or so, we should see what the agenda in the House is going to be. We should see, are they going to mention retirement programs? Are they going to mention, reforming 401k programs, reforming Social Security, SSI, SSDI? Hopefully over the next 10 days, we will find that out, and we'll see, what Democrats want to do in the House as well. But at the moment, he really didn't say that they're going to focus on it at all. Well, Chuck Schumer came out and he responded once Kevin McCarthy was elected Speaker of the House. Chuck Schumer, obviously the Senate Majority Leader for Democrats, said Speaker McCarthy's dream job could turn into a nightmare for the American people. Honestly, when it comes to retirement programs, I kind of agree. Now, if you see how Kevin McCarthy has this plan to empower the Freedom Caucus, right? He didn't want to, right? He didn't want to. He wasn't trying to give in to them. But when push came to shove, Kevin McCarthy gave in to the Freedom Caucus, and his plan was to basically give them what they want just so he could get his dream job, right? Kevin McCarthy caved for his own dream job to come to fruition, but this could end up being a nightmare for the American people, right? When you're empowering the Freedom Caucus. And again, I'm not talking about all the different issues. If you like the Freedom Caucus, that's fine. But when it comes to retirement benefits, do you think the most conservative Republicans want to expand benefits? No, they want to cut benefits. So Chuck Schumer said to get the votes, he surrendered to demands. He surrendered to the demands of a fringe element of the GOP. Americans want Congress to build on the historic bipartisan achievements from the last 2 years, not more gridlock. And that's exactly the problem here. With Kevin McCarthy's plan to work with the further conservatives, now we could have more gridlock, right? Especially because now literally one representative like Lauren Boebert could say, nope, we're not going to vote on this bill. We're just going to, we're going to bring a vote to challenge Kevin McCarthy. And they could do that over and over and over again, just like they did these last 4 or 5 days, just to get him elected, right? Now, also, interestingly enough, and I wanted to point this out in other news, just quickly, slightly off topic, with all the hoopla we have about like Democrats versus Republicans, President Biden recently was in Kentucky with Mitch McConnell celebrating the infrastructure package, right? Remember that bipartisan infrastructure bill? And it's kind of interesting to see what's at play here. And the most interesting thing from this clip I'm going to play here is President Biden kind of let it slip that Republicans and Democrats typically, even when you see them attacking each other, they're doing it for theater. So basically, Joe Biden came out and said, hey, Mitch, do you want me to praise you or do you want me to attack you? What's going to help you get the votes, right? What's going to look better for you? And that all comes back to, Republicans and Democrats. Hey, stop it. They're putting up a show, right? Why do you think you see Biden, in Congress and the Senate for 30 years? Why do you think you see Mitch McConnell there for 30 years as well? They're working behind closed doors. They're shaking each other's hands. And then they're basically doing everything they can to remain in power, but not doing what they should be doing to help the American people, right? Just like Kevin McCarthy is doing with the Freedom Caucus. But I want to play this clip and let me know what you guys think. It's pretty crazy to see.
I'm especially happy to be here with my friend and colleague in many years, and I might add, longest-serving leader in the United States Senate, Senator Mitch McConnell. I asked permission if I could say something nice about him. I didn't want to. I said I campaigned for him or against him, whichever helped him
That's exactly
most.
what I'm talking about. Did you hear that? I'm going to play it again,
For decades, people said Senator Mitch McConnell. I asked permission if I could say something nice about him. I didn't want to. I said I campaigned for him or against him, whichever helped him most. But for decades, people have talked about the Brent Spence Bridge. But folks, talking is over. The bipartisan infrastructure law, we're finally going to get it done. And the law, it's the most significant investment. This whole bill is the most significant investment in American roads, bridges, since the Eisenhower Interstate Highway System. Over $1 billion from the infrastructure law for this. It's going to upgrade the bridge, and the delegation has fought so hard to get done for so long.
We all know these are really partisan times, but I always feel no matter who gets elected, once it's all over, we ought to look for things we can agree on and try to do those, even while we have big differences on other things. And this bridge, I think, symbolizes the coming together of both sides on something that both sides thought was important to try to get an outcome. So if you look at the political alignment of everyone involved in this, it's the government working together to solve a major problem at a time when the country needs to see examples like this of coming together and getting an outcome. And so I'm pleased to be here today to be a part of this. I encouraged it, I supported it, and I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish working together.
All right, guys. So I hope that made sense. Pretty much just showing you how they're doing whatever they can for themselves behind closed doors. They're really working together, right? Democrats and Republicans in a lot of cases. Now, really quickly, for those of you just joining today's show, I'm going to quickly recap what we spoke about, right? We're going to talk about Kevin McCarthy's new plan in the House, how that could affect your retirement benefits, and maybe what we could expect to happen going forward, right? But really quickly, I want to touch on what's happening with inflation here, right? Now, obviously, if you're on benefits, if you're on a fixed income, you've seen that it's been challenging for your benefit to keep up with inflation. Now, although we have the annual COLA, it's always not quite enough, right? We've talked about the fact that seniors typically have more bills like medical bills, things like that, that don't really get accounted for as well in the COLA increase. And then on top of that, it's always a little bit late, right? You know, you deal with inflation all year, then you get your COLA next year, and then inflation just kept going up. Well, essentially, we kind of have a weird problem with inflation in 2023 with the expectation, right? And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't have a crystal ball. But a lot of experts think that what could happen is we could just keep seeing inflation slowly go down until the end of the year. And again, we don't know if that's going to happen, but a lot of experts think that's likely to happen. The problem with that is the way COLA is calculated, this could cause a massive problem for people on Social Security, SSI, and SSDI, because COLA is calculated in Q3 of every year, right? Third quarter of the year. So what could end up happening is, although we have 7% inflation, then 6.8, then 6.5, then 6 and 5, and it slowly starts going down, which is good, right? Overall, we want it to go down. But then if you've had higher inflation earlier in the year, and then in Q3, you know, you keep trending down, now you're at like 3%, 4% inflation, that's what your COLA is going to end up being, right? So you've dealt with higher inflation the majority of the year. Then when it trends down, that gets locked into your COLA in Q3. And then your COLA, you know, your COLA could end up being, 3%. And then although you dealt with like 6%, 7% inflation all year, because it went down at the end, if that kind of makes sense. Now, because of this, this is one of the reasons why Bernie Sanders wants to implement the Social Security Expansion Act. That makes sense, right? Because not only will that shore up the trust fund until I believe 2095, which is insane, that would be amazing, but also it's going to create that additional $200 boost that would be added every month for the entire calendar year of 2023. Now, that would help account for the fact that COLA could potentially not be enough if inflation is higher earlier in the year and then trends down towards the end of the year, if that kind of makes sense. But guys, for those of you who are just joining today's show, we're talking about the fact that Kevin McCarthy finally won the Speaker of the House after 15 votes, which was completely insane. But he did so with a plan that involved empowering the most conservative Republicans in the House, right? People like Lauren Boebert, Scott Perry, everyone in that Freedom Caucus, which is fine. You know, if you agree with their policies, that's fine. But when it comes to retirement programs, this specific group of Republicans really don't want to bolster retirement programs, right? They don't want to expand Social Security benefits. They don't want to increase SSI, SSDI, and Social Security. So with Kevin McCarthy's new plan being to basically work with the most conservative Republicans, right? Similar to how President Biden decided to work with Joe Manchin. How did that work out, right? That didn't work out too well. This new plan to basically cave in to the more conservative Republicans, that's not good, folks. That's not good when it comes to retirement programs. And Chuck Schumer came out saying, from the Democrats, obviously, that Kevin McCarthy basically caved to the Freedom Caucus just to get his dream job, right? And this could end up becoming a nightmare for the American people. And quite honestly, when it comes to retirement programs, I agree. So Chuck Schumer said Speaker McCarthy's dream job could turn into a nightmare for the American people. To get the votes, he surrendered to demands of a fringe element of the GOP, the Freedom Caucus, right? Now, Americans want Congress to build on the historic bipartisan achievements from the last 2 years, not more gridlock. So unfortunately, exactly what Kevin McCarthy did is basically what Chuck Schumer is saying. He caved to the Freedom Caucus on a couple of things. One, he agreed to put more of them on as chairs of committees, which what happens when you're a chair of the committee is you control a small part of the bill, right? So you have all these committees, they all create a small part of each bill of the bill, right? And then the chair of the committee approves that part of the bill, and then they put it all together as a massive bill and put it on the floor to vote on it. Well, if you're the chair of the committee, you could not even approve it, and then it won't even make it to the actual bill. So when you have more conservatives chairing these committees, that's not good for retirement benefits, right? Then he also agreed to allow one single representative to challenge the House Speaker and force a vote to try and replace him, right? And what does that do? So basically, like Lauren Boebert, let's say they're trying to approve a bill, whatever it is, whether it's Social Security or the debt ceiling or the spending bill every year. Lauren Boebert could say, you know what? We're just going to keep voting to replace Kevin McCarthy, just like they did the last 5 days, right? That basically could create more log jams, slow things down even more than they already are, and that doesn't bode well for retirement programs either, folks. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Now, for those of you who are just joining today's show, I'm going to play a quick clip, and this is from Kevin McCarthy. It's a quick little speech he gave once he took the position, and we're going to look at kind of what he said he's going to lay out as his agenda in the House. Obviously, this affects seniors as well, whether it's other topics, not directly related to retirement, or potentially talking about the topic of trying to make Social Security solvent, trying to reform SSI and SSDI, which need massive reforms as well. But let's take a quick look and see what Kevin McCarthy had to say. Then we'll discuss what we expect to potentially happen next.
That you take this obligation with love for this country and charity for each other. Let us now take our oath and be worthy of the office on which we are about to enter. God bless everybody in this chamber, and God bless America. Not so fast. I have to get sworn in first. Sit down. I am now ready to take the oath of office. I want to ask the Dean of the House, the Honorable Hal Rogers of Kentucky, one of my first mentors, to administer the oath of the office.
First, we want to offer a bipartisan congratulations to the gentleman from California. Now, will the Speaker designate raise his right hand? Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you're about to enter? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Congratulations and Godspeed.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So just to break it down and summarize it here, essentially Kevin McCarthy. So he came out, he didn't give a full layout of what their agenda is going to be, but he kind of quickly gave us a couple of tidbits. And he mentioned they're going to focus on immigration, they're going to focus on education, and they're going to focus on basically defunding the IRS so they can't audit people as much, right? Which is fine. But they didn't give a full layout of their agenda, right? Now we know they're going to investigate Biden. We know they're going to do things like that, investigate his son, but we don't quite know yet if they're going to mention retirement programs. Are they going to mention, reforming these programs? Are they going to mention cutting these programs, increasing these programs? Or are they going to try and ignore it, which is typically what they try and do? But before these midterms, retirement programs actually got brought up a lot, right? Remember, we had Bernie Sanders write the bill for the Social Security Expansion Act, which would expand benefits massively. Then we had some Republicans surprisingly come out and say they wanted to cut benefits right before the midterms, which was shocking. So these benefits did come up right before the midterms, right? So they could come up again now that the new Congress is in session. We'll have to wait and see what happens, but that's what I'm here to keep you posted on. Obviously, we had Joe Biden make all these promises about increasing benefits across the board. Then we have Bernie Sanders' plan. So we'll have to wait and see what happens now that the new Congress is finally in session, now that Kevin McCarthy won Speaker of the House. But the point of today's show is that Kevin McCarthy's plan to work with conservative Republicans, that plan does not bode well for retirement programs, folks, especially because these guys, the small group of really, really conservative Republicans, they don't want to expand benefits. They want to cut benefits. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens going forward, guys. But with that said, thank you so much for watching. If you guys like this content, don't forget to subscribe. And again, if you want to get free stocks, you could sell them immediately. Click the link in the description of this video. Remember, you have to fully open your account, complete the process completely, and deposit even just a single dollar to get all of your free stocks. Company is fully registered and insured with the US government. Also, guys, if you want to learn how to create multiple streams of income, just working a handful of hours per week, click the link in the description to join our new program, Gig Economy Pro. It will be launching by February 28th. Right now, we have a really huge sale for those of you who sign up now before the course fully launches. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next show.